Hey everybody, it's Cassidy Ellis, Local Governments Program Manager at Sphere, and we're back again for another installment of 5 and 5, where we ask one expert 5 questions in 5 or so minutes. I'm joined today with Jennifer Lancaster, Senior Account Executive with Johnson Controls, to talk a little bit about the energy services world. So thanks so much for being here, Jennifer.
Thank you, Cassidy. I'm so glad to be here.
Always good to talk to you. All right, so let's jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about about Johnson Controls and your work there?
Sure. I love what I do. I get to work with communities to help them have better, safer, more connected, and more efficient buildings and spaces to live, work, and grow. And Johnson Controls has been in the business of improving buildings for over 100 years. We're true building experts. And our passion of making buildings better extends to the communities where we serve.
Great. And one of the services that Johnson Controls offers is energy savings performance contracting or contract. So can you tell us a little bit about what an ESPC is and how does it help public entities manage and reach their energy goals?
In an era of uncertainty, public entities need the support of partners who can ensure that those states, municipalities, local governments, K-12 districts are poised to respond to whatever challenges they may face and to be resilient. A lot of public entities are faced with a budget crisis, and they need to look at their facilities and see how they can be more resilient and efficient. And what I consider the business as usual approach of addressing facilities infrastructure improvements piecemeal over time, it tends to not serve these entities very well. Performance contracting is a procurement approach. It allows public entities to select a partner based on qualifications to address their facilities needs holistically, and then leverage the resultant energy savings from these improvements to their facilities to pay for the improvements over time. And there's legislation in every state around these projects. Texas has its own legislation. In Texas, we can go out to 20 years to fund these types of projects. But I think it really provides a holistic, comprehensive approach. I mentioned the business as usual approach of piecemeal over time, and that tends to really hamstring public entities to where they have to address things bit by bit here and there. And by taking a really holistic approach, instead, they're able to serve their energy goals and to have a greater impact on their facilities, because performance contracting, it addresses everything at once.
Great, yeah, and it's so important to have a proactive approach because it can be so much more expensive when you just fix something when it breaks.
Absolutely.
Or replace something when it breaks. So kind of along those lines, what is one thing that you recommend all cities and counties and public entities do to better manage their energy and spending?
Well, I'm a big evangelist for addressing deferred maintenance. I have found over the years that public entities tend to kick that can down the road more than anything. And again, going back to that business as usual approach, they tend to address facilities piecemeal out of the budget over time. But when we're in times like we are now with certain pressures facing, say, local governments with Senate Bill 2, there's a budget crisis. And right now with the pandemic, people aren't spending as much locally. There's reduced sales tax revenues. A lot of times the place that public entities will look first to reduce their spend in the budget is unfortunately maintenance on their facilities. They'll push that off. And unfortunately what that does is create a perfect storm for the future. They're setting their buildings up to not operate efficiently, have comfort complaint calls from building occupants. They'll be set up to be more reactive than proactive. And over time, they're waiting until they have an emergency situation. Say a chiller goes down and they've got to address that right now, rather than proactively trying to address these things on a scheduled basis with more budget stability. And that's where it ties back to your previous question. Performance contracting, it ends up being a beautiful tool because it allows them to find alternative ways to spend alternative ways to fund, I should say. It's a budget neutral approach because they're leveraging money that they're already spending now on their utilities And they can have resultant savings from the improvements with a performance contract to pay back and to fund the improvements over time. And it helps them just to be in a more proactive rather than reactive position.
Absolutely, yeah, and you know, spending money that they're already spending, but also deferring that addressing that deferred maintenance.
Yes.
Okay, so thinking kind of more broadly, what is a emerging trend, product, service in your industry that you're really excited about, and why?
You know, there's a lot. It's hard to point to any one gadget that's exciting. I tend to look at things more holistically. So when I look across our industry, what gets me really excited is how we're able to promote equity. And when I say that, what I mean is usually in the areas that we see the greatest need, those are often the areas of greatest opportunity. For example, when we look at a city or a school district, a lot of times in certain areas of town, some of the facilities have become run down. Bond projects, new construction, may be focused in other areas. And that sets up an unfortunate cycle of going down a track towards inequity where some areas they're just not being served. And I think that by leveraging these types of procurement and project methods and project approaches that we've been talking about, public entities can have a greater impact on making things more equitable and to address the things that have been neglected. And even around that specifically, when you think about school districts and schools in some areas might not get touched by bond dollars, things like a performance contract can enable districts to address those areas and improve student enrollment and create a better public perception on how the district is addressing inequity. But beyond that, you know, I'm sure every organization in our industry can talk about the different things that they offer, and there's a lot of exciting things going on in our industry. But I like being able to tackle some of the needs in our facilities and how that can impact equity conversations. I just think that's really important.
Yeah, and it's so great that those conversations are happening and important to address them. So that's great. Okay, so for our final one fun one, what is one thing that not very many people know about you that you're comfortable sharing to the World Wide Web today?
Well, a lot of people probably don't know that my husband, he owns a delicious salsa company called Kylitos. And I was a big fan of the salsa for years, and I met him, it was almost 7 years ago. He was doing a demo at a grocery store, and it's delicious salsa, and I was a super fan, and now I'm his wife, and great stuff.
It's such a sweet story. Well, I can confirm it's great salsa, and glad that you guys make that. Well, that is a wrap. Thanks so much for being here, Jennifer. As I said, always so great to talk to you.
Oh, thank you, Cassidy. I'm so glad that we got to do this today.
All right. See you guys next time. Bye.